Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome back to Castaway Consultants. This will be a rewind edition where we take a look at former seasons. And of course, we watch these seasons, so you don't have to. And we are the Castaway Consultants, so we will be the ones to tell you whether or not this is must-watch Survivor. And if you don't want to watch it, just listen to this podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Derek Kubicek, and I have not seen any of Season 4 before. We are on Marquesas for this episode, the first half of Marquesas. We are on Season 4, the first half of the Marquesas season, and I know nothing about this season, and so I get to kind of walk you through the first viewership of this.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Stacy. I'm your resident superfan, where I know everything about Survivor, and I'm a super genius. And I'm extremely humble.
And I am Josh Wessler. I am the official caught in the middle guy. I would still consider myself a super fan of Survivor, but I have not watched every season. There's a good chunk at the beginning, good chunk at the end, and a gap of like 5 seasons in the middle that I have not watched. My perspective is basically to see how memorable this season is.
Yep, we're using Josh as kind of a test to just see how much he can remember. Because when did you watch this season?
Ooh, this would have been, I would say, roughly around the 2013-ish area. So if you're listening to us immediately, about 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Derek's never seen this. This is actually my first ever full season of Survivor. I was in 2nd grade, and my parents said, let me watch the finale of Season 3, so this was the first time I got to watch a full season of Survivor. So this season's got a special place in my heart, but I'll try and be unbiased. So I guess the first question we have to ask before we get into anything spoilery is the pre-merge of Season 4 Marquesas, is this must-watch Survivor?
And I'll go ahead and jump in first. I think this is. Back in Season 3, I said that basically Season 3 is not must-watch Survivor in terms of new gameplay. I know that if you listen, you know that Ryan says Season 3 is basically a workshop on what not to do when you play Survivor. And I basically summed up that whole thing by saying the winner did the fewest things wrong and just kind of let the game pieces fall around him. Season 4 has got who I understand to be one of the most memorable characters of all time. And he has some of the most memorable confessionals, and for that reason and that reason alone, I say this is must-watch Survivor just to understand the very mythos that will carry us through all the way into Season 39. So, yes.
Yeah, I would take out one person from this cast, and I would probably say that it's not a season that you need to really watch. But my point is basically echoed from Derek's. One guy and one guy only. Boston Rob is going to drive the whole reason to watch this season. Even if Boston Rob isn't like the person of the season or anything, he comes into play so many different times throughout the Survivor franchise. Anyone who knows anything about Survivor should know that. But if you haven't seen anything, this is going to be a recurring theme with Boston Rob. And for that reason, I think you should watch it.
Hot take? This is not must-watch Survivor.
I don't think that's
I don't think that's a hot take. Well, because of what I just said, I would say that this is not must-watch Survivor, if only for one person.
I will say Boston Rob is amazing television. But what I said about Season 3 was this is kind of how not to play Survivor. But it was like a realistic way. Like, here's how you don't play Survivor. Here's some mistakes you can make. This is unrealistic, cartoonish levels of how not to play Survivor. Everybody on this season is so bad at playing Survivor. They're not all awful, but they're all extraordinarily flawed. There is not just a solid player here. Everybody, including Boston Rob, has extreme problems with their game. This almost feels like a parody at times of Survivor. This is like MTV Survivor. Whoa. It's actually kind of ridiculous. Now, this is an entertaining season, but I think most of them are entertaining. But if you really want to understand Survivor, if you're watching this in terms of like trying to build a knowledge base, I say no. I don't think this pre-merge is must-watch Survivor. Entertaining, yes, but there's nothing to learn here. There's nothing that'll give you any useful knowledge, really. At least nothing that Season 3 didn't already give you.
It's a good point.
The only thing for discussion, and we don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but it felt like this first part of the season was kind of this pendulum swinging back where we've played this game of Survivor with, ethics, and there's always been this divide, and then these people who have been sort of backstabbing or plotting, scheming, have been seen as the villains, whereas we're kind of seeing a little bit of a shift in Season 4 a little bit where even if they're painted as villains, they are more of our protagonists. and that social aspect is being more intentionally highlighted. So I thought that was interesting. Whether that is or is not something that's must watch for you, like I said, the whole reason I call it must watch is Boston Rob is so deeply embedded in the mythos of Survivor. But to concede to your point, though, I can see where this, to a super fan, is same old song and dance.
Yep. So normally this is where we would drop in the game that Josh plays every season, where he tries to remember as many people from the cast as he can. But we're not going to play it this time because Josh got one right.
Hey now.
You're an all-star.
This is season 4, not season 8.
Yeah, this isn't all-stars yet. So I don't think it's kind of pointless to play because we already talked about the one person he remembered. And
spoilers.
It was Boston Rob. It was Boston Rob. Anybody on the planet who can name one Survivor player, this is probably the one. Everybody knows this guy. Even people who've never seen an episode of Survivor, they've heard of Boston Rob. He gets mentioned in an episode of 30 Rock. Yeah, of course, this is the one Josh is going to remember.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of feeds into the how memorable the season is it must watch, just all of that. When you can name one out of 16.
Now, who knows? Maybe that'll get turned around in the post-merge, but this is what we got for the pre-merge. Yep. From here on out, there's going to be spoilers. The second half of the season is going to be unspoiled in this podcast. We're not going to talk about it at all. We're not going to talk about who wins. All we're going to talk about is all the way up through who makes the merge. So if you want to listen to me and not watch this season, you can just listen to this podcast. If you want to listen to Derek and Josh, go watch this first. Come back and give us a listen. You can hear our thoughts on it and tell us if we're idiots or not. So go for it. Otherwise, spoilers ahead. You've been warned. Anything else?
No, let's get into it.
Go back and watch the first episodes if you want to start from season 1, I guess. If you just found us now.
Yeah, go back and listen to our podcast in the first 3 seasons. But in the meantime, let's head back to the beach. Okay, so like I said, the first episode is back to the beach because this is the first season where we're going back to the beach. Fun fact, this season was actually originally supposed to be filmed in Jordan, 9/11. So there goes that idea.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Marquesas it is.
Yep, and I'm sure Jeff Probst would have rather filmed in Jordan because this was his least favorite filming location ever.
Which I just don't get.
Well, we'll get to why.
Yeah, right.
But the other interesting thing about this season, before they even land on the beach, they find out they are given no food.
Yep, no food, no fire, nothing to start with. They get nothing. They get a couple pots for boiling water.
Right?
They get like 2 machetes and like 2 pots, and that is, and then like 2 water carrying containers, and that's it.
Yep. So pretty bare bone stuff. And my prediction, my hypothesis at the beginning of the season, was that this would create more cohesive living situations, more cohesive societies, because you would need to actually function. You need to go and get your food. So
you were half right.
Yeah, I was indeed half right. One is basically Lord of the Flies, and then the other one was basically like their own little utopia.
The Love Tribe.
Yes. So anyway, that was just before you hit the beach. This one is different, that they were given nothing.
So we have 2 tribes this season. First, we have the Mara'amu tribe. Mara'amu. I cannot pronounce this tribe to save my life.
Just go Mara.
So for this tribe, we have Gina Cruz, who's a nature guide from Florida. Hunter Ellis, an ex-Navy fighter pilot from California. Patricia Jackson, a truck assembler from South Carolina. Peter Harkey, a bowling alley owner from Massachusetts. Boston Rob Mariano, a construction worker from Massachusetts. Sarah Jones, an account manager from California. Sean Rector, a teacher from... This is weird. Online it says he's from Los Angeles, but on the show he says he's from Harlem, so I don't know. And then Giuseppe Tauri, an office manager from California.
Maybe he's originally from Harlem.
Yeah, and maybe he just moved to Los Angeles. That could be the case.
Well, yeah, Peter's like, teach me Harlem.
Yeah, they talk about him being from Harlem, so that could be the case. And then the Rotu tribe, a.k.a. the Love Tribe, we have Gabriel Cade, a bartender from Los Angeles. John Carroll, a nurse from Nebraska. Kathy Vavrick O'Brien, a real estate agent from Vermont. Nalia Dennis, a student from Utah. Pascal English, a judge from Georgia. Robert the General DeCanio, a limousine driver from New York. Tammy Lietner, a crime reporter from Arizona. And Zoe Zanadakis, I think is how you pronounce it.
There's a name.
Who's a fishing boat captain from Maine. So on Mara'amu, immediately we get a great intro for Sarah, who does not help row in at all. And Sean describes her as Cleopatra being like carried in by her servants.
With the boobs out.
And
it was not a good look.
Not a good look. But it was also a pretty good look.
Oh, good Lord.
Just a really memorable intro for...
Memorable moment number 1 for Josh.
Yes.
So, and I didn't say this at the beginning of the episode, but since I have watched this season before and I kind of want to be the memorable
judge,
I'm only watching a few episodes. I'm watching the premiere, the merge episode, and the finale. And since this is in the premiere, I definitely remember this moment. Especially, I almost remember Sean more and his description of it, just because I thought he put it just so eloquently. Just Cleopatra sitting there with the boobs out.
Yeah, because I don't think I would have noticed if he hadn't said anything.
No, probably not. But then props to Survivor editors there. Right after he says it, she's just sitting perfectly on like the platform of the boat or whatever,
as they're coming into shore.
Just coming in, she's just doing nothing, and it's just perfect.
So on both tribes, we have somebody stepping up and taking charge, being a leader, which is terrible. So on Maramamu, we have Hunter, who of course is taking charge. He just looks like a leader.
When you picture a Survivor leader, it's this
Hunter.
dude.
And right off the bat, he's confronting Boston Rob about his work ethic, because Rob just kind of wants to have fun. The whole Maramamu tribe mostly just wants to have fun. Not great. And then on Rotu, Kathy gets into arguments with people because she's kind of taking charge, and they're not working fast enough on the fire, and so she gets into an argument with John about it. You know, eventually John and Zoe and Dalia get it started, but it's not a great look for Kathy either. Survivor 101, day one, what do you do when you hit the beach? You do what everybody else is doing. You don't step up and be the leader. You do what everybody else is doing. If they're lazy, you're lazy. If they're hard workers, you're a hard worker. Chameleon.
Absolutely. And I've phrased this a different way, but it's basically the same old song and dance, is what you just said. Look for those barometer people. There are going to be 2 or 3 people that are going to dictate how camp life is going to go on day one. But the move, like you said, be a chameleon, blend in. If the barometer people are a couple older, more traditional people, because this is how it tends to work, and they want to work hard and they want to get it done, guess what? Buckle down, be a chameleon, let them dig their own graves, because if people are getting irked by that, it will come across in the vote. On the flip side, if you've got a bunch of young buck, no-collar millennials who want to lay nude on the beach, you don't even need to necessarily get nude, but don't be the only one working. Be with the group.
If everybody else is getting nude, get nude. If nobody else is getting nude, don't get nude.
I mean, only if you're the only one not nude.
Yeah. If the majority of the tribe is getting nude, get nude.
Yeah.
Blend in. Do what the majority is doing.
And I think it depends on like your personal like self-awareness, and if you know that one of these things is probably one of your biggest weaknesses, like being able to work or being able to be like sociable. Blending in is going to get you just one episode further, so do it.
Don't be the leader, and don't bark orders at people. They don't like it.
Thankfully, there's no map needed here, so you can ignore that.
They cast people specifically to cause conflict, so if you argue with people, guess what? You're going to cause conflict. That's how reality TV works.
Casting directors know you.
Yep. Probably better than you know yourself.
Ooh.
Over on Maramamu, Peter's actually the one who gets the fire started using a breathing technique that he learned from yoga, which is actually pretty interesting. But Peter's a weird dude. He's talking about, he's hanging out with Sean, just chilling. They're talking. He's like, yeah, teach me some Harlem stuff. I don't know what that means.
And then holes.
And
I can't tell if you could consider that racist or just very innocent and actually wanting to know more.
I think it's the second. I do, but it's weird.
And I do think there was some context of conversation there where Sean was talking about being from Harlem, and Harlem is more of an attitude than a location, or at least that's kind of the feeling I got away from that interaction. Mm-hmm. And so Peter was like, well, show me some of that. Like, I'm trying to integrate here. But it just came across really odd.
Yeah, it's weird. And then Peter goes off this long talk about being a master of all the holes in your body and how holy he is. And Boston Rob's like, at first I thought he was talking about, like, being religious, but he's literally talking about holes. Guy's a Fruit Loop.
Fruit Loops have holes.
At least one.
So yeah, Peter's weird. We've never had somebody quite like Peter on the show, and I don't think we ever will again.
Feathers.
Yeah, I guess Vince is the closest.
There's some weird people.
But Peter is unique. And then right away, Boston Rob and Sarah, they have a showmance going on. I feel like this is our first real two-way showmance we've ever had.
Especially from all, like, the forced ones.
Yeah.
The attempted ones.
You know, we had Jerry who wanted all up on Colby, but, you know, that was one way.
That's not two-way.
That was not two-way. And then, you know, they tried to shove Greg and Colleen down our throat, but this is the first real one with Rob and Sarah, I think.
And it's hard to know if it's a, like, genuine two-way or if they're now both kind of thinking about playing the game with this.
Rob will actually go on in a later episode and say, yeah, I'm not interested in her. I just want her vote. Like, if she's with me, she's with me. And he's all about making people obey. So, I mean, I do think that there was some legitimate flirtations going on, even if he intended to go nowhere with it. I do think that the feelings of attraction were real here.
And I think Sarah just wanted to use Rob to protect her.
Absolutely.
Totally.
A shield.
Meat shield. Maramu ends up losing immunity because they drop a torch during the immunity challenge where they have to carry fire. And I think Sarah's the one who dropped it, but I'm not 100% sure. It's a little hard to tell.
I think it was.
But back at camp, Peter's very open about scheming and plotting, and he's like, we should get rid of Patricia. She's the weakest one. Gina says she doesn't want to form an alliance. I don't know if that's true or not, or maybe she's just telling that to Peter because she wants to vote out Peter. Don't know.
We only get what we're served.
If she doesn't actually want to form alliances, that's stupid.
And it's really stupid to say it.
If she's lying to Peter, that's great. I don't know, though.
If maybe she's just saying it because it's the first episode.
Sure.
And she's like, I don't want to make an alliance until after the first vote.
Well, and if you lose immunity, guess what? It's time to make some kind of alliance. Even if it's not an alliance and it's more of a voting block, you need to be with someone. You need at least one person that you can latch on to here. So don't like this move, Gina. Or maybe I like this move, Gina.
Yeah, we don't know. Not enough information. Sean and Vesepia, they want to get rid of Sarah just because she's lazy and not great at the challenges.
Which is hilarious because...
Sean and Vesepia, especially Sean, are pretty lazy.
Yes.
Everybody else pretty much wants Peter gone, though, because he's such a weirdo. So it ends up being 5 votes for Peter, 2 votes for Sarah, 1 vote for Patricia. And I gotta say, this was the wrong move. Voting out Peter was a terrible move. It should have been Sarah, because the only person who really has Sarah in any sort of alliance is Rob. I say the first thing you should do is vote out the weakest person who's not in your alliance, Sarah.
Is Sarah an actual weak person, or does she just not contribute? Because there's a difference.
Both. And if she's the one who dropped the torch, you know.
So on this particular tribe, Patricia's the weakest. I mean, physically, Patricia's the weakest, but she was a much larger contributor at camp. And after that one challenge, I agree with Ryan. I think it should have been Sarah here. I would have been okay with Patricia, but Sarah is the right move because she's not helping.
Yep.
After you're already through how many days here?
3.
3? You should have a decent start on like your base stuff that you need for people to contribute around camp with. Now there's always like ongoing daily activities, but like building a shelter and getting all that stuff just ready to go. When you're thinking about people who are contributing around camp, I don't think that has as much weight as someone who might be weaker in challenges.
I'll say this season is different because they have to get their own food. They started with no rice. They need to go gather every day. And they need to be hunting and they need to prep. So, I mean, typically I would agree with you. You don't need someone who's as good around camp. But this season, I will disagree. I will say it's more important.
Especially on the Rotu tribe, but Maramu, they at least have a bunch of fruit around, so it's not quite as hard for them to get food. It's harder for them to get protein, though.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I guess my argument is more just like I think Patricia should be considered more. Either way, we're in agreement that this was the wrong choice.
Peter is, out of these 3, Peter's the last person you want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Because he's a strong guy. He's weird, but he's strong. You keep that around for that first boot. So ultimately, I think the best player of the episode, this is not a great episode for finding good players, but I'm going to go with John, because he got the fire going, and he showed the most self-awareness after his fight with Kathy, and he immediately tried to mend that bridge.
And I actually have a different one. Even though I said don't do this, and I always say don't do this, like Ryan said, no one had a great episode here. I say Hunter.
Okay.
Because he did not get into any conflicts with anyone. John is my second choice, but Hunter, he had some people making passive-aggressive comments toward him behind his back, but ultimately he was in the leadership position on a tribe on a season where you need to provide. And early on, when no one knows how to do anything, I do think that he is the safest on this tribe, even if that doesn't carry on too far. But I had Hunter as best player here.
I actually also had Hunter.
Interesting.
Yep. And my reasoning being similar to Derek's, where I'm looking short term, just trying to get to the next episode, basically. And on a season where you have to provide, like Derek said, he has assets that I don't think anyone else on his tribe has. And although usually you'd go against your leader, eventually, if he can buy himself 2-3 votes, that's good enough for, okay, I'll take that leadership spot. And then hopefully after the first couple of days, first couple of votes, I can push that leadership off and just kind of be another member of the team.
0% chance I would ever do that. But
I know, but I think there was no one else that really stood out to me as being the best. So that's kind of just my slightly better than dart throw.
Yes, that's fair enough. Worst player, I think, is Kathy, because how overbearing and bossy she was. And she kind of had a meltdown about the fire on row 2. So I think Kathy's the worst player of the episode.
And I had Sarah because at least for all of her wrongdoings, Kathy was on the winning tribe and she's on a tribe that can work together. And she took steps to mend the bridges.
No, she did not. John took the steps and she accepted the steps.
They're accepted either way, though.
See, Sarah at least got into an alliance, at least with one person.
I still think that Sarah had the worst episode because she ends the episode at the bottom of her tribe, in my opinion.
Kathy ends the episode at the bottom of her tribe.
It's true, but I think that Sarah did more to her detriment. If you're two people at the bottom of the tribe who had a worse episode, I think that Sarah did. But I can't take it away from Kathy, because either way, they're the next one's gone if they lose immunity.
Sorry, Ryan, I picked Sarah.
Wow.
It's the person who I wrote down after watching the premiere, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
And basically for the same reasons, is that she's the one who, I mean, you guys just spent how long talking about how she should have been the one voted out? Mm-hmm. How does that not make her the worst player of the episode?
She wasn't voted out. She should have been, but she wasn't.
She wasn't, but that just shows how close she could be to being voted out. I get that Kathy's on the other side, and you could say the same thing. The only difference is whoever wins immunity. So I completely agree with the Kathy side. I agree with the Sarah side. But I'm going to go with Sarah.
Also, we think that Sarah snuffed the torch.
Yeah, we think it was Sarah who dropped the torch. Okay, well, now we need to make our winner picks. So this will be a little bit of a change this time around. So what we're doing is, you two, Josh, you're going to try and remember, do you remember who you had when you watched this the first time?
No, but I wrote one down.
Okay. So, Derek, this is the first time you've seen this.
Yep.
So you're going to make a legitimate winner pick because you don't know who won. And then, Josh, you're just going to, based off what you saw in the first episode, who you thought was most likely to win.
Yep.
Now, what I'm going to do, because I remember all my winner picks because this is my first season, I'm going to tell you who I picked as my original winner pick.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yep. So back when I was in second grade, I had a winner pick. You know, I watched the first episode, and I'm like, this is who I think is going to win. And I did that for every season from season 4 onward. So that's who I'm going to tell you guys. Do you guys want me to say who my pick would have been nowadays?
Sure. Say both.
Say both. So I'll do one from the perspective I had when I was a little kid watching this for the first time. And then now as an adult super fan, I will tell you who I would have picked based on just the first episode being
using logic.
Using logic and being as unbiased as possible. So Derek, you want to go first?
No problem. I picked John, the nurse from Nebraska, for my winner pick after episode 1. He seemed like he was, on the more functional tribe of the two. Strong guy, smart guy, and seemed to have some wits about him. And you couple that with a positive edit and a couple good moments, it's enough to drive home an episode 1 in winner's edit for me if I'm thinking about it from modern Survivor editology. So John's my pick.
I think that's fair. I had a hard time with this. I don't remember who my winner pick was for my original watching of this 5 or 6 years ago. There was no one that I was in love with. There wasn't. Usually you can narrow it down to like 3 people who are like, you know what, these people really could win. There was no one like that. Anyone who I thought had a healthy amount of screen time, I thought had no chance or were just going to sabotage their own game. So what I went with was basically someone who had an edit, but wasn't a part of the episode a whole lot, hoping that they'll kind of come out a little bit as the season goes along. So my winner pick is Gabriel.
Okay.
The Brainiac from the Rotu tribe.
Blonde curly hair guy.
So when I first watched this season when I was in second grade, my winner pick was Hunter, just because he had the most survival skills. He seemed the most naturally fit to survive on the island. And I did not realize that doesn't matter.
It's an easy pick, right?
That's not important.
In fairness, I think a lot of adults at the time agreed with you.
Yeah, and Hunter's going to get voted out third, and it's shocking, and it's to this day, it's a huge, huge change in how the game is played and seen. But at the time, Hunter was my winner pick. Now, going back, knowing what I know, I think John would have been my pick, just because I liked his level of self-awareness. He didn't get a ton of screen time, but he got enough, and it was mostly positive, so John would have been my pick.
Oh, we agree.
Yeah.
2v1.
Okay, episode 2, Nacho Mama. So we see a lot more Rotu in this episode because they are the love tribe. They get along great.
Except for Kathy.
She finds a good amount of food, but she's really condescending, not very social, rubbing people the wrong way. And Gabe actually tells her, you got to be more social. It's not just about the food. You got to talk to us, get to know us.
And that was after Kathy came to them and made an accusation. You guys are excluding me. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're the one who's walking around in the shallows over there turning over rocks. Yeah. Like, bring someone with you. You don't need to go out there doing it alone. You're getting credit for the food, but we don't know you.
Yeah, you got to play the social game, Kathy.
Who cares about the food?
Now, granted, Gabriel is not a great litmus test for how to play the game, but he's absolutely right here.
Yes.
It is your responsibility to make sure that you are fitting in.
Yep.
And even if you don't actually fit in, you're a pariah, too bad. This is $1 million. Put on a mask.
Fake it till you make it.
And if you can't, you don't belong there anymore.
He's a great model for the social game.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take any advice from him, take it about the social game.
Absolutely.
Gabe is great at the social game. He's really great at the physical game. He might be the worst strategic player ever, though.
Well, you can't win them all.
Yeah, he might be literally last.
As Meatloaf would say, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
And then over on Maramu, Patricia's gaining some confidence that she survived the first vote and is now becoming a little bossy and overbearing. Don't need that. Stop it.
Yeah.
Basically, Kathy.
Yeah, she's more likable Kathy.
More likable Kathy.
Yep.
People said it was endearing at first. I think Sean says it started off endearing, but then she kind of became my mom, and I'm a grown man. I don't need to be told what to do all the time.
And that's exactly right for any older people, like any moms and dads who want to go on Survivor. You got to remember, you might be in your 50s, and these young kids, they're in their 20s. Guess what? They're still adults, and you're all equal as far as Survivor's concerned.
I'm going to even say that would be my number one rule for anyone over the age of 50 who's playing Survivor.
Maybe 42.
Even like 40, 45, anyone over that age. The number one rule when you're going on Survivor is don't act your age.
Yep.
Because you are a very easy target for first boot on your tribe just because you appear weaker. Even if that is not true, which a lot of the times it isn't. I can remember many contestants over the years where they basically say over and over, like, I'm really strong in all these areas. Why are you trying to vote me out? And they're like, well, there's this one really specific thing.
Yeah.
And they try to pick it out, but it really is just because they're older.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really fair. And it sucks, but that's the game.
Nobody ever said Survivor was fair.
So don't act your age, and if you can make it past the first couple of votes, usually you can keep going.
Yeah, you got to be, what is it? It's Steve Buscemi on 30 Rock. How do you do, fellow kids? You need to be Steve Buscemi.
Bring a skateboard as your luxury item.
Yes. That's the secret. You can't come into the game with this attitude like, all these millennials don't work hard. Maybe that's true, but you don't need to work hard either. Nope. Let it go. Do what they're doing. Descend to our level.
We're trash. One of us.
Exactly. Do you want to win or not? So we get a moment where Sean and Visepia, they kind of bond over. They're both African American. They're both very, very Christian. So they form a tight bond over both of these things.
And it's actually a really, honestly, good interaction because this is still television in 2002. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it as a white person, but white people didn't like seeing this kind of thing on television in 2002. At least a large majority. Sure. Because we, again, as a race, don't like to hear about these invisible struggles. We're much more aware about this now in 2019. But it was a really fascinating interaction that holds up. Sean is talking to Visepia, and he's like, they just don't understand that we're not just playing this game of Survivor. We have this whole other game that we brought with us from home. It's really, honestly, it's subtle, but it's powerful if you're watching for it. So I really love this moment. It's one of my favorites in the pre-merge.
Yeah, Sean was a super polarizing player at the time, but I think he's aged well. His game has aged well. What he says is aged well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sean, if for some reason you ever listen to this, go you.
Hit me up on Twitter.
I love all this. It all holds up. It's amazing.
And then Rob talks more about wanting to keep Sarah around because she's another vote for him, like you said. She'll vote with the way he wants her to. That's all he cares about. It's a good way to think about the game. We have a reward challenge where Gabe is an absolute beast, where she's ripping all those rocks out of the boat. They have to get a sunken boat off the bottom of the ocean with a bunch of rocks in it, and Gabe does like half of it in one go. It's ridiculous.
And I don't know who the smart tribe was that just flips the boat over, but that would have been like the first thing that I do.
Yeah, you got to get enough out of there so you can get under it and flip it, and that was Gabe's tribe.
See, I don't know if you would have thought of that right away. Like, it's very obvious afterwards, but if Jeff Probst goes to you and says, these are the rules, you do this, 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 and if the first step is diving down to take rocks out of a boat, you're like, I'll take rocks out of the boat, Jeff. All right.
See, I'm going to go ahead and put it in a vacuum for a second. This is how I think that Derek would have tackled this. I would have not been the first person to dive down and go get rocks. Because there's always that go-getter who's like, we're going to tackle this problem head on. I'm always the person who wants to come in like second. Like, is there a better way to do this? If we can't think of it, fine. I'm going to contribute this head-on way. But, I mean, if we're talking about pulling rocks out of a boat, I probably would be sitting there at the life raft thinking, do we really need to be doing this? And I'd be like, all right, we need 3 of us to go down there and flip this boat. I'd like to think that's what I would have done. So I'm glad that somebody did it, because that was what I said when I was watching it. I was like, just flip the boat. And then they're like, hey, let's go flip the boat. 3 of them go and flip the boat. I'm like, yeah.
So that's smart. I probably have been more the head-on person in this situation just because I'm really good in the water. Like, that's my jam. So
I don't brag much.
yeah, I mean, there's not much in terms of Survivor challenges. There's not much I'm good at, but the water, that's where I shine.
Puzzles?
Now, I mean, I can do slide puzzle. I learned how to do slide puzzle. Regular puzzles, not so much.
I was about to say hashtag humble brag.
Yeah.
But then he insulted himself. So
Yeah, like those balance challenges rip me. So Sarah kind of feels ignored. Like, her tribe isn't really listening to her.
Aww.
But at the same time, the way she's saying things isn't. It's like pointing stuff out, but not really helping. So it's just kind of bad all around. It's like, yeah, you should probably like take her opinions a little bit more, but Sarah, you need to be better at presenting them. It's just all around bad from her.
Well, she's still being Cleopatra. She wants to be the leader without doing any of the work.
She wants to delegate.
Start doing the thing and then say it, and if people don't listen, maybe eventually they'll see it. She was standing there complaining about work that she wasn't doing. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know Sarah in real life, but this is not a good look. It doesn't matter if we only see 1% of this screen time. This isn't good.
This 1% was bad.
Yes.
Then we get to the immunity challenge, which is just the classic eating challenge, and they have to eat fafaru, which just looks bad, like a rotten fish, basically.
Smell it through my screen.
And it ends up being a tiebreaker. Boston Rob versus Nalia. Now, this is a fun fact about Boston Rob. He is one of the world's pickiest eaters, and that is going to be a fun thing to track when he plays again. He's a very, very picky eater. He does not do well with this kind of thing. So he ends up losing to Nalia. Boston Rob loses this challenge for his tribe. So that's just kind of interesting. He ends up puking it up.
Worst survivor ever.
Don't blame him. Ugh.
So Sean, he believes Sarah is next to go right now. And after Sarah, he's next. So he kind of wants to change things, which is fair enough. If you think you're 2 from now to go and we're this early in the game, yeah, flip it up. So it ends up being 4 votes for Patricia, 3 votes for Sarah. Obviously, Rob wants to save Sarah. They get Sean and Vesepi on board because they feel like they're on the bottom against the alliance of Hunter, Gina, and Patricia, who are on top. And they flip it and they knock Patricia out of the game. I think that is 100% the right call for those 4.
Yep, I would agree.
Absolutely. Because you still don't want to get rid of Hunter. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get rid of Gina. Mm-hmm. They're all contributors.
Patricia's being annoying. She's the weakest of those 3.
Do you know what you just said?
What?
That Patricia's the weakest of the 3.
Of those 3? Huh?
What did you say last episode?
What?
I was making the argument that Patricia was the weakest, and you said Sarah was the weakest.
Of those 3, though, I think Sarah and Patricia are kind of like maybe one's weaker than the other. We haven't really seen any evidence of that, but Hunter, Gina, and Patricia's the weakest.
I was trying to catch you in your words.
See, I think about what I say.
Sometimes.
Yeah, usually.
Sometimes.
So anyways, I would agree.
It's the right move.
Right move.
Right call.
For those 4.
Yep, and that's what matters. What is the right move for the majority?
And Hunter, Gina, and Patricia maybe should have tried to make other people feel more comfortable and want to go with them.
Like Sean, like Vesepi, like Rob. I don't know if that would have worked.
This result is directly a fallout of being at odds with the majority of your tribe. If you got 4 people who want to play it more chill and you don't, guess what? You're on the outs and you've got no one to blame but yourself.
Oh boy.
And it was basically the difference between old style, new style, the new style kind of like starting to form, and those other players are more just like, we're surviving.
Yep.
And that's it.
It's like there's more to Survivor than just surviving.
Surprise.
Fun fact. Best part of the episode?
Yeah, so my best player of the episode is Boston Rob.
Okay.
I said he saved his teammate Sarah from being eliminated by the majority alliance, even though it ended up not being, by roping in 2 people who are at the bottom. This was really heads up playing and understanding the social dynamic on his tribe, and puts him in a power position going forward if he thinks that he can keep everybody obeying, at least until the merge.
So I don't have a best and a worst, but I don't know how you have Rob as the best if he lost the tiebreaker in the immunity challenge.
Exactly. This is why I don't think Rob is the best, because he single-handedly lost it for his tribe.
No, he's not the worst, but I think that automatically disqualifies him from being the best.
I don't think he outplayed in terms of challenges, but I think that he did enough finagling on the social and strategic side of the game to give him the leg up. But that being said, I defer. Who did the best?
Vesepi, because she formed that really tight bond with Sean, which is great. Those are going to be tough bonds to break. And then she got rid of Patricia. She's now in the majority. So those 4 all got in the majority. But Sarah, Rob, and Sean did something in the episode that wasn't great, whereas Vesepi did not. So it's almost by default.
So why Vesepi and not Sean?
Because Sean just like annoys people and is generally lazy, whereas Vesepi has, I think, better connections overall than Sean does.
This was kind of an overarching thing that because you only watched episode 1, you didn't see it much. But a lot of people were not happy with Sean's work ethic, and particularly particularly Hunter and Gina and Patricia. You saw it a little bit elsewhere, but people liked his personality. He does a little morning show thing, and he's really funny. In general, his edit was more negative than positive, which I get because of his gameplay, but I don't like because I feel like I would love this guy in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, they do have this radio show that is amazing. They do like the Maramu morning show. Mm-hmm. It's really,
That's
really
right.
funny.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, Sean's got some great moments on that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I actually think I want to talk about this. But yeah, so I said Vecepia is the best player. Worst player?
Kathy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if they lose immunity, that's a 7-1 vote right there.
Yep.
And yeah, you found food, but you played that all wrong. Like, you don't throw it back in their faces. She had the food in a bag and said, all right, I'm going to give this to you, but first I need to give you this maternal monologue, this soliloquy to the audience. Like, all right, I'm going to share this with you, but just because I'm so generous. And then, like, dumps, like, 12 clams out. And I'm like, okay, you best have had, like, a dolphin or something. Like,
a stingray.
Caught a pig or something. Like, no, it's Kathy.
Yeah, you don't get to mom everybody for 12 clams.
Yes.
I have nothing, so I'm going to trust your guys' instincts here and go Kathy.
Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
We're in agreement.
All right, episode 3, no pain, no gain. So after Tribal Council, Sarah and Sean lash out at Hunter and Gina, who get defensive. All that's wrong. Hunter and Gina needed to play it cool, and Sarah and Sean also needed to play it cool. Everybody needs to play it cool. Yeah, Sarah and Sean, you won, okay? Don't lash out at the people on the bottom now. Be a good winner. Don't be a poor winner.
Yeah, they kept it together just long enough to leave Tribal Council.
Yep.
Bad play.
And Hunter and Gina, you're going to get defensive. I get it. It's the natural response, but don't.
Yeah, you can't lash out here.
Yeah. Kathy starts to mellow out. Everybody starts to like her. Gabe's talk with her worked. She's chilled.
Why didn't you do this earlier, Kathy?
Great. That's awesome.
But, drop me in that position. She is now doing the right thing. It's not going to get you out of the hole every time, but hey, you have to start with the first step.
Yep.
And she's doing it.
And one of the biggest traits a survivor can have, adaptability.
Bingo. And Kathy's showing it right here. It's great. We get Nalia and Pascal forming a bond, kind of like a Roger and Elizabeth from Australia.
Got that same vibe.
Yeah. It's Diet Roger and Elizabeth. A lot of injuries in this episode. So,
oh, God.
In the same day, first, John gets hurt by a sea urchin. And to cure that, you need someone to pee on you.
Which, by the way, is a myth, by the way.
Are you sure that's a myth?
So it's like getting stung by a jellyfish. You're not supposed to let someone pee on you. It's something that can help relieve it, but it doesn't do anything for it. So the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, this myth is disproven in like the 2010s.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Isn't it? I thought it was like one of the things where it was a temporary like relief, but that's about it.
I don't know. I thought this was like a thing, but I guess I don't know for sure.
Hold on.
Yeah, let's Google this.
Are you supposed to pee on jellyfish stings?
According to Lifehacker, please don't pee on jellyfish stings. You've probably heard that you're supposed to urinate on a jellyfish sting, or perhaps pour alcohol on the affected area before scraping the stingers away.
What about urchin stings?
I think they fall into about the same category.
Are you supposed to pee on sea urchin stings?
Here's a summary from Healthline. If you're stung by a sea urchin, immediately remove any part of the sea urchin that's embedded within your body. Use tweezers to remove the large spines. To manage initial pain after the sting, you can take over-the-counter treatments like ibuprofen or acetaminophen.
Nope.
So I'm just going to go ahead and read this on here right now.
Yeah.
Because this is a widely held myth.
Yeah.
But just a quick Google search, and we see, unfortunately, in the real world, treating a jellyfish sting by urinating on it may actually cause someone in a person's situation more pain rather than relief.
But what about an urchin sting?
It's the same family. It's the same family. You're supposed to remove the pieces of the sea urchin and then treat with medication. Okay. You're not supposed to pee on anything. It might actually cause more pain. If anything is temporary relief, but that's a person-to-person thing.
And I think the argument is that like it's supposed to clear out. It's supposed to like sanitize it or something. Sterilize. Yeah,
sterile.
Pee contains urea, is what I'm seeing here, and urea is supposed to be some kind of anti-pain something.
Mythical antidote.
Some guy tried this thousands of years ago, and we still believe it.
Okay.
But basically, Kathy pisses on John's hand. I'm like, well, this is a way to open the episode.
Yeah, it's a great opener.
And I would like to nominate this for one of the most memorable moments of the season.
Oh, 100%.
And I'll come back at the end of our second part of the season
To get the
official winner.
But yeah, this is definitely a nominee.
Yes.
And then later in the same episode, poor John gets bit on the same hand, I think, by an eel. Poor guy. He just gets wrecked in one episode.
Okay, so now thinking back about this, he's a nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah, he treats himself.
He should know these things.
Well, I mean,
And
he's also
still-
a nurse in Nebraska.
True. I guess there's not many sea urchins or jellyfish or whatever
Or
in
anything.
Nebraska.
There's not much of anything in Nebraska. But then also, Robert, the general, slices up with his foot. And then John does take his nursing skills and he cuts off part of Robert's dead skin.
And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and say it. That scene was the worst injury I've ever seen on Survivor. Not necessarily like, life-altering game removal, but they just show John holding on to this like 4-inch piece of skin with this dull machete, and they just keep showing him like trying to cut it, but it's a dull machete. I actually was like, I'm not squeamish, but I can't watch this. This is just uncomfortable. Blood, pain everywhere. The general's got a great quote. He's like, it's just pain. Life is pain.
Okay, Rick and Morty. Mr. Meeseeks. General Meeseeks over here.
So it was fun.
Then we get the Maramu morning show. One of the big things this season is the no-nos, which are flies. These really annoying flies with painful bites that live on the island. And this is why Jeff Probst hates this season, because they were so miserable because of the no-nos.
And I did a little bit of research of these no-nos. They're a part of this genus of fly that are like sand flies. And for people living in North America, if you ever see the horse flies with the big green eyes, the ones that bite you, it's the same kind, except they're smaller and they can burrow into your skin even, and it's just not a good time. So the weather might not be such a big issue on Marquesas, but these sandflies, if I get to go on Survivor, please not this one.
Yeah, this is the last season I go on. I'd rather go on any other location than this one.
This one in Cambodia. Like I said,
I would go in Cambodia over this because I hate bugs.
they show a lot of really chilling shots of like the arms and the legs and people itching, and I'm like, no, those don't go away. Those are scars. Like that's bad stuff.
Yeah, no thank you. And if you notice, Jeff Probst wears long sleeves a lot in this season, and that is not a thing normally.
He knows.
That's
He's
why.
usually in his blue polos.
Yep. But there's a really funny moment in their morning show where they're pretending to do an interview with Hunter, and they're asking him, what's worse, the black no-nos or the white no-nos? And Hunter very innocently goes the black no-nos, and Sean...
Ring.
Sean pretends to be an angry caller. Like, what's wrong with the black no-nos? The white no-nos are keeping them down. It's hysterical. And it's so funny. It's one of the funniest moments on Survivor.
And I think it's probably the best moment over as a tribe on Mara'ama with these morning shows, but this one in particular because everyone is just taking it in stride. This is pretty funny. So again, Sean, +1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. This is amazing.
Yep, that's great. So this is interesting. Row 2 wins reward, and they get to choice between rice or comfort, like pillows and blankets and stuff. They pick, on a season where they don't get any food, they picked the comfort, pillows and blankets.
Stupid.
I agree. I think you don't want to do it, but...
Unless are there bug nets in there?
Maybe, I guess I don't know. If there were bug nets in there, maybe you take that.
Maybe.
I don't remember if there was nets in there or not. Yeah, that would have been nice.
See, and I disagree. I'll say it just really quickly, but they obviously felt like they had enough food. We certainly know that over on Mara'ama, they were not hard off for food.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely see later on, like they were better off for food than they even realized. If they hadn't all been so freaking lazy, like they had eaten like kings.
Yep.
So obviously they didn't feel like they were going hungry. They knew it was a lot of work, but if they stuck together, maybe comfort is better.
My thing is always, first rainstorm, that stuff's basically ruined. Don't
Truth.
swear. Just, I thought it was interesting. But Row 2 ends up winning immunity for the third time in a row. Hunter and Gina, their plan is to get Rob on board to vote out Sean. What? Why? Get Sean and Giuseppe on board to vote out Sarah if you're going to do anything. Like, Hunter and Gina's plan is so flawed and it's so stupid. I don't know what they were thinking. Why would Rob turn on Sean? He's got no reason to. Sean and Giuseppe have shown to be annoyed with Sarah in the past. Work on that. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but their plan is stupid.
I agree. And it doesn't help that Sean is already leery of Hunter, and he would have talked about this with Rob. They're almost forming a little coalition against Hunter in the background of all this. And by the way, Sean calls Hunter Golden Boy specifically in the season. Have we heard that yet? Or is this the first
This
instance?
might be the first time we've heard that.
And I agree. I mean, Hunter is the Golden Boy. I mean, he's good looking. He's the survivalist. He's basically got everything.
Yep. He is your homecoming king kind of guy.
But he doesn't have the strategery.
Does not. And Rob has a really good line in a confessional where he says, yeah, me and Hunter are really similar. We're both kind of the guy, the big alpha guy. Rob is just better at hiding it and, willing to put that aside out here, even though he'd like to be the guy in charge.
And this is where you realize that Rob is no one to be taken lightly. Because like you said, he says, there are a lot of big men in the world. I'm one of them big men, but I let the big men be big men. I'd rather be a smart man. And I'm just like, oh, crap. And because this is how I felt watching this, I took notes on this whole confessional because he goes on to say, doesn't matter if the tribe is strong, doesn't matter if the tribe is smart, only matters if they obey.
It's a great confessional. It's a top 10 confessional all time, I think.
It's amazing because all of a sudden you're like, okay, this guy might just be like blowing hot air, but if he can do something with this, and this is where I'm talking about, like this builds on the mythos because I've never seen Boston Rob play. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just watching him like, okay, this guy, he doesn't sound like he has rocks in his brain or anything like that, but like rocks in his skull. But
where's the hype?
Where's the hype? And then all of a sudden this comes out of left field. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I'm watching. You got me.
You have my attention.
And this brings us to a shocking tribal council where it's 4 votes Hunter, 2 votes Sarah. This is the wrong call. Gina should have gone home here, 100%. You need the challenge strength, You got 2 people, neither of them are going to be loyal. Keep the one that's stronger.
Well, and here's the thing is you have kind of already seen that Hunter's not the greatest strategic person. So if that's something that you're worried about, it shouldn't be. So if you're choosing between those two, I think you're completely right.
Yep.
Keep Hunter around. He's a golden boy for a reason. He's going to perform pretty well.
Use him.
And I'm going to disagree. I think that for Rob, Hunter is the right move.
You're nuts.
No, he is leaning into his strategy. He's getting rid of people who he cannot control. Because think about this. In this world, he votes out Gina. And he is the evil one, right? He's the villain. And we have a tribe swap coming up. If he ends up on the same tribe as Hunter, he's gone.
To be fair, these people don't know tribe swaps are a thing. They had not seen, so
I'm just saying.
They didn't see the actual tribe swap.
I'm just saying. Either way, like let's assume that tribe swaps aren't a thing here. They don't know about this, right? You go into the merge with 3 people you can control versus Hunter, who's going to be an alpha dog. It's completely different games, but obviously Rob feels like he'd rather go in a group of 4 and navigate the game that way than go in with an alpha dog and use the meat shield strategy. Rob likes to be in control without people knowing it, and he can't do that as long as Hunter's there. So for Rob, this is the right move, but he needs to lean into it all the way for it to work. So I get it. And to me, everyone else on the Mata Amu tribe, they're not winning this game. I don't think. Not at this point. I haven't changed my mind, spoilers, but like this was the only way. So I like it. Get rid of him while you have that control. So
I think you were dead dog wrong.
Hot take.
I think you were 100% wrong. But
yeah, I think you're wrong too.
That's fine. That's fine.
I do not agree.
Hot take.
Don't agree at all.
Who did you say was not going to win?
Sean Vesepia and Gina and Rob.
Oh, that tribe. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. You're generalizing the tribe.
Yeah.
So best player, I think, is Kathy, just because she improved her social game so much, and then Jesso pissed on John.
Got to perform under pressure.
That'll create a social bond.
That's
I think.
A bond.
I
mean, there's no greater bond than relieving yourself on another human being.
It's yep. I don't know what else to say about it. I think John would remember something like that. Like
it's hard to forget.
So I think Kathy's best player.
Yeah, she's made the biggest improvement
for sure.
So for me, and I'm gonna share both of mine right now, my best and worst. Because I didn't really pick one, and I apologize because I couldn't. There really wasn't anyone who played outstanding this episode.
Oh, no, not at all.
But I gave my best player to literally everyone on Row 2 for not being a part of the Mata Amu experiment, and Rob for being in complete and utter control of everything going on Mata Amu as we know it right now.
So your best player is Rob.
My best player is kind of Rob, but at the same time, it's so weird. And this leads right into my worst player. It's everyone on Mata Amu except Rob, because he is puppet mastering all of them. And at this point, I think that none of them can win the game. I think that it is maybe not quite beyond reach, but it's fading fast. The darkness is coming. So I know that that's kind of the cheap way out, but this episode was really like the Rob show. And nothing else. So
Okay. My worst player is Gina because she got really overly defensive after Tribal Council. She tried to get Rob to vote for Sean, which is dumb, and then she ended up just being on the wrong side of the numbers.
I see that.
You know, she survived, but she did nothing to do that. Now, she survived in spite of herself.
In fairness, yes.
So,
Yeah.
second grade Ryan.
Yes, there goes my winner pick. Not off to a good start, young me.
You old innocent old chap
Yep. So, I lose Hunter here. So, my new winner pick
in second grade.
in second grade, because I remember who I jumped to. I'm like, well, there goes one, and I was stunned about this, but like my new favorite because he was a younger guy, seemed nice enough. We hadn't really seen any of his flaws yet, and he was a beast in the challenges so far. Was Gabe, so I moved on to Gabriel.
Join me.
Yeah, so I'm on Team Josh now.
Yeah.
Gabriel is my new winner pick.
It's gonna last forever.
Woo! All the way to the end. A whopping 2 episodes later. All right, so episode 4, The Wind's Twist, and we get our tribe swap, and it's really fun to go back and rewatch this, knowing that these people didn't know this was happening. Zoe looks like she wants to murder Jeff. It's hilarious because they had not seen a tribe swap, so they're like, what is this BS? And they keep the same numbers. So Rotu has 8 people, Maramu has 5. And so on Maramu, Gina and Sarah stay there, but they are joined by Pascal and Aaliyah and Kathy. Well, over on Rotu, John, Robert, Tammy, Zoe, and Gabe all stay there, and they are joined by Boston Rob, Sean, and Bisepia. So Maramu's in a rough spot. The original Maramu people are all in the minority.
Keep in mind, I basically binged watched all these episodes, so I'm still on the sugar rush of Boston Rob going on a complete power trip on Maraamu and seizing everything. So I'm just like, I don't even care about the tribe swap. What's Rob gonna do to these new people? Like, they have no idea what's coming for him. And Rob goes on to have another absolutely amazing confessional where he goes one by one and he profiles everyone on his new tribe. And we don't need to get into super great detail here, but he's just like, yep, here's who they seem to be, and here's who I think they are.
It's one of the funniest and one of the meanest confessionals ever.
Absolutely.
It's brutal, but it's hilarious.
It's great for TV.
Yeah, go check it out if you're not watching this season. So, new Maramu, Gina immediately does a great job of bonding with Rotu. She and Kathy both have real estate experience, so they bond over that, and just throw Sarah right under the bus. It's great. Gina's like, nope, I can't work with Sarah, so I'm going to get in with these guys. That's a good move. I like it.
Fair.
Yeah, and it comes down to social game. If it's a mano-a-mano and Gina fits in better, yeah, Sarah, you're in trouble.
Yep, great for Gina. The group decides to go on a walk, and Kathy gets the tribe lost, which annoys Pascal and Aaliyah and Sarah. Gina's like, it's fine, whatever. And Sarah just isn't very social. She doesn't fit in with this group at all. So,
And she's still lazy.
over on Rotu, Sean has a meltdown about working so much because Rotu's a workaholic tribe. Bummer, guys, you gotta work now. I mean, you're in the minority. You need to work. So, and
Adaptability.
Sean melts down. It's pretty funny.
And again, maybe hot take, but I kind of agree with Sean here with one qualifier. If you think that you're the next one voted out, you have absolutely no reason to work.
But if you refuse to try and work with these people, you're not going to get in, and you will be the next one out.
It cements your position
Yeah.
rather than like gives you, even if there's some slimmer crack of hope there.
Contrast is Visepia, who leans into it. She doesn't like it, but she kind of separates herself from Rob and Sean. She tries to work herself into the Rotu group, and it's like that if you're getting attacked by a bear. You don't need to be the fastest person in the group. You just have to outrun the slowest person. All you got to do is be better than the other two. And
Unfortunately,
make it
even
emerge.
if they're in your alliance.
Yep. Who cares? You met these people a week and a half ago.
Yep.
If Visepia is doing the right thing and separating yourself from Rob and Sean.
And to the larger point, Maraamu, each one of them are living for 3 more days at this point because it doesn't matter who loses, they're on bottom.
You got to get to the merge.
Yes.
And you just got to be better than Rob and Sean and hope you don't lose too many immunity challenges.
Yes.
Be better than the other two. Sean needs to be better than Visepia and Rob. And he's a dead last. He's doing the worst of the 3.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm more referring to Rob here. Like, if you're going to not work, you have to be like Rob where you're not stirring the pot. Mm-hmm. Sean is confronting Gabe about this. Now, we'll learn that Gabe doesn't care.
Yep.
And this absolutely means nothing to him.
Yeah, but I'm sure he didn't like getting yelled at.
I'm sure he's already used to it with Kathy, I guess.
Sure.
But it's always Gabe. Why are people yelling at poor Gabe?
I don't know.
The guy who doesn't, care. He's like, yo, man, let's just have fun.
Let's have a society.
Let's be a society.
I want to build a society.
Goddamn hippies.
I love Gabe. He's great TV too.
Gabe is so weird.
He's interesting TV.
He grew up on a hippie compound. If that makes
Oh,
you...
did not know that.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
On a commune,
Yeah, weirdo.
John comments on it. He's like, "We're not on the commune here. We're trying to win $1 million."
Yeah, and that's the thing for Sean. It's like, you're trying to win $1 million. You might have to do something you might not want to do. Oh no, we do that every day at work.
Big whoop.
For minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like, $1 million bucks. I mean, come on. I'll move some logs or get firewood for $1 million bucks. So Rotu wins the puzzle immunity challenge thanks largely to Gabe. He was the leader on that and nailed it. Whereas Kathy was the leader for Mararamu and tanked it. She did very poorly. You know, Kathy has like the right ability in terms of being able to yell, but it's not cohesive or concise. It's just kind of like
Scattered.
Where Gabe is like very focused yelling. So that's the difference here.
Focused yelling.
Really easy tribal council. It's 4 vote Sarah, 1 vote Kathy. This is 100% the right move. Sarah's not helpful. Nobody trusts her. Nobody likes her. Get it gone with her.
Yeah. Create more cohesion.
A victim of the tribe swap, but it still should have happened either way.
Yep. Right move. Best player I thought was Gina, because she bonded so much with Rotu, especially Kathy. She throws Sarah right under the bus and gets her voted out. It's great stuff for Gina.
And this one, based on the edit, it almost felt like Gina moved up to 3 on the tribe because Nalia and Pascal, they do seem more irritated with Kathy's antics.
100%.
And Gina takes note. So I had Gina as my best player as well, because if you can somehow get cemented in with the majority group, good on you.
If I was Kathy, I'd be worried that just in case they don't win immunity next time.
She might be next. Worst player is definitely Sean for his meltdown.
No question.
Yelling at Gabe. Don't yell at Gabe. Leave him alone.
Like, it's one thing if you don't want to work because you think you're the next one out and you just want a vacation for the next 3 days. It's another thing altogether to torpedo your own game.
Especially when you're on a new tribe.
Yeah. So, bad move.
Sean is not a great Survivor player. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
But I still want to shake his hand.
He's very entertaining.
Likeable person.
Yep. He's a very funny guy. Episode 5, The End of Innocence. Sean decides to completely stop working. He's done. Well, Vesepia plays the social game, and Sean and Rob are like, yeah, she's brown nosing. That's what you're supposed to do.
That's what you
That's
gotta do, guys.
And this is where I was like, Boston Rob, you are really entertaining, but you are not playing this game all that great ever since the tribe swap. It almost feels like you got screwed over, and you're just kind of angry.
Take my ball and go home.
Yeah,
that's not fair.
He's bitter.
Yeah, Rob's the type of player who's great at running the game from the top, not so great at playing from the bottom. That's something about Rob.
Not great in the face of adversity.
Yeah, Robert and Tammy, they're trying to like placate Rob, like, no, you're good, you're one of us now. And, good on them. They're trying to reassure him. Whereas Gabe is telling the tribe he's not here to play the game, he's here for the experience. What? What does that even mean? And John's like, no, you're playing the game. By default, you're a player in the game. That means you're
literally.
And I do agree with John on this. He's too forceful with his opinions. Gabe choosing not to play the game is still playing the game. You're a piece on the board. No matter how you're going to do it, you are playing. And yeah, I agree with John. I think he's 100% right. Gabe, I don't know what you're doing here. Get the hell off this island if you're not here to play. Gabe is baffling to me, and not great for my new winner pick and your OG winner pick.
Well, yeah, no.
Because this is the end of Gabe in this episode.
Yeah, and with John, like you said, maybe don't just be like that blunt with it.
Yeah.
Let him dig his own grave, basically. As long as you have the healthy numbers, I think you're fine just kind of like letting it go. Maybe make like one comment just like, you do realize that yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, talk to Zoe, Tammy, and Robert about it. Like, that's weird. Bond with them. Gabe's now bottom of your alliance, but you can still use him. Don't get rid of Gabe here. This is terrible. Yeah, this is a rough episode in terms of gameplay. Because, he's going to continually confront Gabe a second time. And he gets so paranoid, he forms a Final Four alliance with Tammy, Robert, and Zoe. And he's swearing out of his mother's life to Tammy, which is the first time we've ever seen anything like that. So yeah, John gets paranoid and starts scrambling, and I don't think he needed to yet.
No, I mean, he's in a very comfortable spot, theoretically. I mean, it's 5v3 on your tribe.
It's almost like everything was going too well over on Rotu, and they were looking for conflict where there was none to find.
Finding paranoia where paranoia doesn't need to exist.
And I think there's something to be said for a tribe that loses frequently. It's a bonding experience and can make tighter alliances than a tribe that wins all the time.
Well, and I think we even see that all the time in Modern Survivor. If you have a tribe that makes it all the way to the merge without going to tribal, they are ill-equipped for the voting strategies after the merge comes.
Yep.
We see it. I mean, it's not more common than not for the majority tribe to go in and win anymore. you can have someone on a minority tribe who's just as likely to win because they're more experienced and tribal.
Yep.
They
can find a way to get the upper hand early enough on in the merge and win it.
It's so odd how that happens. But either way, meanwhile, over on Mara'amu, Kathy has found crabs.
Yep. That's great.
And now they get to eat like kings.
King crabs.
So throw one worker over on Mara'amu, and all of a sudden their beach is just a gold mine. They're eating like actual kings. They've got a whole frying pan full of crab. I was like, good lord.
This was here the
tasty.
entire time.
It actually looked good.
Yeah, I would eat it.
And they have like pineapple and grapefruit and like all of this stuff that they're picking from the trees. And I'm like, what the heck?
I thought this was Survivor.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. I see why they didn't get any freaking food.
Yeah, they didn't need it. They have a reward challenge, blindfold challenge, and Kathy ends up winning it. And they get a phenomenal reward, an OP reward, where they get to raid Rotu's camp. And we're going to see this come up again, but they nerf it in later
which
seasons.
they absolutely needed to, because this was because I do remember this after it came up.
They got 2 minutes to run around and grab as much as they wanted. You couldn't take luxury items, and you had to leave like a couple of things, like a machete and a pot and a water jug.
Basically, the essentials that you came with.
Yeah, and they take virtually everything. They missed like one frying pan of all the stuff they could take.
Is it basically everything that you can fit in a boat, or everything you can fit in your arms?
Everything
or?
you can fit in your arms.
You just had to get it out of the camp.
Yep. It's crazy how much they got. And in future, it's just be like, no, you get to pick one thing. Anything, but you can pick one thing to take with you on your raid.
I remember seeing in future seasons when you do pick like one or two items to raid from the other tribe, it actually comes into play that they purposefully don't take anything valuable because they're trying to look ahead in the game a little bit, and they're thinking we don't want these people to be resentful of us.
Yeah, you don't want to make enemies.
Yeah, exactly.
You might need them.
Yep. So it's like,
thinking.
oh, well, we have to take something, so we're going to take a blanket.
And that's why
and
they
that's
don't
it.
really do this in Modern Survivor anymore. People aren't playing
That
the way
way.
the producers would want them to on that. So they got rid of it.
You got to adapt, even as a producer.
Yes. And so we get the classic SOS immunity challenge where they have to build a sign to signal a boat.
Yes.
And Mara'amu wins because of what they took from Rotu's. Also, Pascal has an American flag as his luxury item, so that helped a lot too.
America.
So Mara'amu wins this easily.
You can't ignore freedom.
Good for them. It's the first time Mara'amu has won an immunity challenge.
All it took was a tribe swap to get other people on the tribe.
Yeah, literally just Gina from the original Mara'amu. Still here.
But now we're going to get back to the juicy stuff going on over on Rotu, because I think that John makes a super boneheaded move here, and he goes and talks to Sean, the talkative one, about a plan to vote off Gabriel.
Yep, just to make sure it won't be a tie.
This is absolutely ridiculous. You've already complained about how Sean is the talkative, kind of obnoxious one who doesn't want to work, and you're going to talk to him? Like, granted, talking to Rob, bad idea, but Vesepia?
Yeah, maybe Vesepia is probably the smarter move here.
She's the only move. You only need one person in to make sure, and Vesepia is the one who is trying to integrate with your tribe.
She's going to stir the pot the least.
You don't
Bring her in.
You don't even need one.
You could probably get away with doing a 4-3-1 vote, but, tell Gabe to vote for Rob. The three of them will vote for whoever, and then you vote for Gabe if you're going to do this, which is a stupid move to begin with.
Yes.
Voting out Gabe is terrible. So Sean goes to tell Rob, and Rob goes over to Gabe and is like, yo, you're going home. You want to try and change that? And they kind of leave us with, like, a cliffhanger going into Trouble House, like, ooh, is it going to happen? When what really happened was Gabe's like, oh, I guess it's my time to go home.
God.
And it ends up being 7-1 Gabe. Gabe votes for Rob because Gabe doesn't want to play the game.
This
Stupid.
And I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is absolutely the wrong move.
Yes.
For all parties involved.
I mean, Rob, Sean, and Vesepia tried something. It's not their fault. They have the worst strategic player of all time to work with.
I should say this is the wrong move for the original Rotu.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
the fact that none of the Mara'amu are even on the chopping block is astounding. We had two names thrown out, John and Gabe. John gets no votes, and Gabe gets 7. This is insanity.
Rob gets one. Rob got one vote.
Or sorry, Rob got 1 vote, and yeah, Gabe gets 7.
Yep.
This is insanity. This is the wrong move for original.
Get
Rotu.
rid of Sean.
If nothing else, think about what this is gonna do when Pascal and Nalia and Kathy, who again are all like Rotu, Hearts and Doves and Kumbaya.
You're breaking up the love tribe.
Yeah.
By doing this. This is so terrible.
And I mean, if you're aware of the people who are on your, especially original tribe, you have to look ahead towards the merge, like you said. And is it the type of tribe who's just going to stick together and you can basically take advantage of that and just ride it all the way to the end? Because if it is, terrible move. Mm-hmm. Along with if Gabe doesn't really want to do much with strategy, you can use him as a playing piece all the way to the end.
Yes, you absolutely can. And John just thinks that Gabe is trying to play him, and he's not. So it's stupid.
And it's tough because I can actually see where he's coming from.
Sure.
So if someone responds that way, I would think there's no way this guy would be on Survivor and be thinking this way. This guy must be a genius.
Yeah, if this happened on season 39, don't believe that guy for a second. They're full of crap and they're playing the game.
Yeah.
If they say that, I'm not here to play the game, they're playing the game. Gabe is the exception. And this will never happen again.
And even if that's so, Gabe is, for me, an easy first merge vote. Like,
Sure.
This can bring the group together. This guy is either playing 5D chess or he is wasting our time.
Yep.
Vote him out, 10th place.
But honestly, vote out any of the Maramus here, Rob or Sean, especially, this is the wrong move.
Mm-hmm. I personally think Rob would have been the right move here.
Yeah, I think so. I think they probably should have, it would have been Sean, I think, but I think
Yeah.
Rob is the right move.
Hindsight 2020.
I think you could go with Sean.
Yeah, it's fine. Either one is better than getting rid of Gabe.
And yet, here we are.
Derek, best player?
Best player. I put Sean. This is probably a bit of a hot take, but he was the one on Mata'amu that John, for some reason, felt the most comfortable with to go to with the plan to vote out Gabe. So even if Rob was the one who was trying to orchestrate the move from the bottom, Sean was the one who had built the relationship to get to that point. So, and then he goes to Rob with it, and he doesn't just throw that information out. He's not careless with it like I would have maybe expected him to be. So I give it to Sean.
That's really fair. I give it to Rob personally, just because he attempted to make this move, and it's not his fault that he got the worst strategic player in Survivor history to work with, and that's why it didn't work. I think Rob just played very intelligently in this episode, and it didn't work, but it's not his fault it didn't work. And everybody else played so poorly.
Yeah, I was going to say, just by default, I think it's one of those three people. The three on row 2 that somehow didn't end up being part of the targeted group.
The three people on Mata'amu who are on the new row to tribe.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry, the three people on row 2 who are on the kind of outside, yeah.
And then Sean, the other thing with him is he decided to stop working this episode. He's like, I'm done working, and that wasn't great.
It's not great.
So that's why I gave it to Rob.
Fair.
But not a lot of good gameplay in this episode. Worst player?
Worst player, John.
100%.
Not even close.
Even if his plan worked and he didn't walk away with a single vote, he now has the biggest target on his back, and he doesn't even realize how bad that he's pissed off Rob.
Oh, yeah. John is losing his mind. He got rid of Gabe when he didn't need to. He told Sean about the plan when he didn't need to. All bad. Abysmal gameplay.
It's okay to be paranoid, but you cannot let it dictate your decisions.
Yep. Paranoia is great. Being paranoid is great. Especially in a game where people are actually out to get you. You can use paranoia to your advantage, but you can't let it control you.
Paranoia is a great tool for seeing the future.
Yep.
How do I lose?
How could these people screw me over? Would they? Is this the right move? What is the best move for them? Thinking about it from other people's perspectives and assuming that they have their own best interest at heart and not yours. That's perfectly natural and fine, and think about those things. But, if it controls you, you can screw your game over easily.
Sometimes you just have to think, what's the worst possible thing that can happen?
Yep. Yeah, what is the best thing that can happen by voting Gabe out? What is the worst? And what is more likely?
Chaos is a ladder.
It is.
Yep. All right. So let's move into the last episode of the pre-merge, the last one we're going to talk about today. That is the underdogs.
And the beginning of this episode is so awkward with John opening up. Like, the note that I took for this, and I guess John's the leader now. He's my winner pick, but I'm just kind of rolling my eyes. He decides to jump nude into the water pool. He's riding high on the John train. He's kind of patting himself on the back a lot.
Oh, yeah.
No one's really speaking out too much about it except the Mata'amu. Like, Rob is pretty irritated with him, but everyone else is just kind of like, well, John's here now, I guess.
And before we go any further with that, you and I have to give new winner picks.
Oh, yeah.
So, we lose Gabe here. Josh, this was your OG winner pick. This is my second winner pick.
Nah.
We have to go again.
Huzzah.
So, Josh, who was your new winner pick after Gabe goes home?
Well, in a sea of people, to put it very...
They are people.
Yes, at the best
can
you
confirm.
can. It's a crapshoot.
Yes.
I'm narrowing it down basically to two people. And it's going to be either John or Rob. And seeing as what happened last episode, I have to, in a very non-confident way, pick Rob.
I'm 100% on the same page as you. Second grade me was like, oh, Boston Rob's smart. And that was my only, and that's true. And I think today I would do the same thing because I haven't seen anything impressive from any of these people except Rob. And even though he's extremely flawed, I think
there's a lot of dangerous parts that would be like, well, he could very well sabotage himself in a lot of ways here.
But who else is
he's
there?
the best choice.
Guys, my winner pick is still here.
Yeah, that's neat.
Good for you. So John is super confident. He's standing under the waterfall. Yeah, it's something.
And what's interesting is we get kind of a slew of confessionals from people who we haven't really heard a ton from. We haven't heard much from Zoe. We haven't heard much from Tammy. We haven't heard much from the general.
Yep.
But we get this confessional from Robert, and I love it. He's like, I don't want to be the leader. I mean, if John wants to be the leader, that's great. I'm kind of a big guy. But I don't want to do that. I love this confessional because so far he's played a great pre-merge. Given the hand that he's been dealt, he's been great. He got hurt and he didn't complain about it. He pulls his weight. He's good in challenges.
He did vote Gabe off though.
He did vote Gabe off, but again, he followed the rule that we followed. Let other people dig their own graves. He knew that he was on the right side of that vote. Just go with it. It's a bad move for them as a whole, but to keep him in his position in that tribe as the chameleon making it to the merge, on an individual level, I get it.
Sure.
Like, if you fault him for it, you have to ding everyone else on row 2 just as much.
I do.
Right. So...
I mean, John the most, but I do ding Tammy, Zoe, and Robert for that.
But I love this little confessional from Robert, and I think Tammy's like, yeah, John's the leader now. That's cool, I suppose.
Yeah, no, they're in a better position than John, all three of those guys.
All three of them, yep.
So John, he's more interested in winning the reward than the immunity challenge. And what they're going to want to do in this episode is they want to throw the immunity challenge, so they don't really care if they win it, to knock Rob out. And they handle this very poorly.
Awful.
Yeah, because they're up by 3. So they have to settle 3 people in each challenge. And basically going into the immunity challenge, all 3 of the Muramu people are going to play in that. If you want to throw it to get rid of Boston Rob out, which is a great move, and I think the right move is throw it and get rid of Rob, you got to put your own people in the immunity challenge and not the reward challenge. They're like, yeah, we care more about getting the food, so we'll play in that. No, play in the immunity challenge and throw it. So I think they handle this whole thing poorly. Shocker.
And I want to take a second. We're going to take a turn down hypothetical way. Opportunity drive.
Yep.
I think you put in 4 row 2 people, and I think you don't even run the maze.
Oh, man.
You piss off Jeff, but that's great TV. And what you do, because here's what happened. You've already done the damage. You voted off Gabe, and you've seen the reactions from Pascal, Kathy, and Aaliyah. They're, what's the word?
Pissed.
Mortified.
Yep.
They're mortified. So you need to take a stance right here, right now, that we are row 2 strong going into the merge. Don't even go in the maze. And when they come out, make it known that is why you did it.
Yep.
Because Gabe did something that irked the tribe. He needed to go, but now we are back on track. We are row 2 strong. This is the move.
Boy, this is a big move, and I have to say, I'm signing off.
Thank you.
I'm on board with this move, especially when you frame it that way to win Pascal and Aaliyah especially, and to a lesser extent Kathy, back on your side.
Yeah.
I like this move a lot, and yeah, this is a great idea.
But instead, what we're going to do is put Rob in the front of the train.
And he's going to just beast mode his way through the maze and win immunity almost single-handedly, basically just dragging everybody.
And yeah, you know what, if you're Zoe yeah, because Zoe and Tammy, right?
It was Tammy. The people who ran the maze were Rob, Sean, Vesepia, and then Tammy.
Yeah, and they didn't hinder him. They could have been more of a hindrance, but, I mean, yeah, Sean wanted to win. Rob wanted to win.
Vesepia wanted to win.
And good gravy.
Yeah, and they put all their row 2 people, John, Robert, and Zoe, and then Boston and Rob all run the reward challenge, which they lose anyway. So this was just colossal screw up on their part. Mainly John, but all of the row 2 people.
Which, by the way, John, Robert, sorry.
Yeah, John and the
Learn
general.
how to row a boat. You were so far ahead. And then you rode in circles, and oh my God.
Yeah, John and the general lose this one, and it appears that they won it, but they didn't bring their boat back to the proper place. So it was interesting because Jeff calls this as a win for row 2, and then they have to basically check the tape, and they're like, "Oh no, sorry, Muramu won," which is kind of interesting.
And this is the reward challenge, by the way, because I was talking about the immunity challenge earlier. So
yeah, this was the rowing reward challenge. But yeah, Muramu was stunned, absolutely stunned that Gabe was voted out. So Pascal was visibly upset.
Yeah.
As they probably should be.
Yeah.
Read that body language.
Yep.
Or don't make a boneheaded move.
So Boston Rob goes on the warpath here, and he's calling out Zoe and John for having an alliance. And Zoe's like, yeah, there's no alliance. And John's like, no, there's an alliance. Yep.
Nothing you can do about it.
Well, that's funny because I just got done talking to Zoe and she said there was no alliance.
Do I have stupid written on my forehead?
And then John's like, do I have stupid written on my forehead?
It's a really great but intense scene. John's like, I promise you final 7. Like, we are the final 7. Okay, great.
Wow, what a great promise. I love 7th place.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that is no incentive for them to stay in the game.
0.
Granted, that's not a bad deal for Rob at this point either.
At this point, but at the same time, it's like that is no incentive for him to be loyal to you in the long term.
It's insulting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and especially, granted, he doesn't know he's playing with Boston Rob.
Yeah.
But
And Boston-
You should be able to tell his personality, though, by now.
yeah. But, nobody would try and do this on present-day Boston Rob.
Or on anyone.
Yeah. And then Rob also asked John if he's gay. It's like, oh, boy. Hey, are you gay?
Not a great...
Like, we're doing this, okay.
Yeah. I mean, 2002, not a great look. Chill out, Rob.
Not a great move. When I was watching it, I was purposefully looking for other castaways who were near there, because I mean, if nothing comes of it and John didn't want to be outed, then you just cut in, don't use that because you don't want to be so risque on television in 2002. And Rob is lucky that John is more okay with this, but there was nobody else there, so I mean, at least we're not pulling a Varner here.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I don't want to get into that too much. That's a little
too much.
That's a little too heavy for me, I guess.
Yeah.
But
still, don't do that.
Don't do that. Keep the game in the game.
I mean, you could ask somebody if they're gay, but don't do it on national television.
Yeah.
Like, it's not nice. Don't do that. But like we said, Rob beast modes his way through the immunity challenge and wins it. And Kathy's kind of the reason Maramu loses. So even more not a great look from Kathy. And then they get back to camp, and Kathy accidentally puts out their fire.
How do you accidentally put out a fire?
She was under the impression that if you bury the coals in sand, that you keep them hot, so that if you unbury them, it will be easier to reignite them later.
Is that a real? I mean,
Don't think so.
I mean,
everyone there says I would put sand on my fire to put it out.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean, that makes
right
if
now.
it's cold sand, like if it's like, oh, this sand has been in the shade, like you can like just thinking about it right now, like you can feel like the sand and like the way that texture kind of feels. It's damp, it's cold, like that's gonna put it out. Now, I can see maybe if it's sand that's been sitting in the hot sun is maybe because it's dried out more. I'm thinking more because it's dried out. There's no moisture, and if you put on it, you preserve the hotness of those coals.
Maybe. I've never had a beach fire before. I have no idea. I know, throwing dirt on a fire will put it out. If I had to guess,
Usually dirt has more moisture, though.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to defend her. I have no reason to believe that. Like, I would never put sand on a fire. Like,
No.
if the choice is do it and it might work, or don't do it and we still will probably have the fire, I'm going to go with don't do it.
Yeah. I don't know.
A very quick Google search, while we are referencing Professor Google a lot this podcast, says no.
Okay.
Sand
Shocker.
will not keep coals hot.
But Gina just throws her right under the bus, and it's pretty great. Good for Gina.
Good move.
You're
She's doing everything she can.
making a last stand here.
But it's not going to work because there's going to be 3 votes Gina, 1 vote Kathy. And I think this is the right call ultimately because you've just been with Kathy longer. She's a worse player, so if someone better to keep around, she's got a worse social game than Gina.
I don't know.
The devil, you know.
Yeah, the devil,
I guess.
I would keep Kathy here. I mean, it's not a big deal either way, but
I mean,
for
when
Pascal
you're,
and the lead,
I guess
Kathy.
when you're this close to the merge, you really have to be thinking about who you're going in there with.
And again, this is a little bit more delayed, but Gina is absolutely a victim of the tribe swap here. She played everything right. She bought herself 9 more days with the way she played the game. And then...
and if you weren't in the position of, say the tribes were merged or something, you would probably be in a higher pecking order than Kathy.
Yeah.
In most scenarios.
So, kind of a bad luck draw for Gina. Not much she could have done, especially at this point. That's the game.
That's Survivor.
no one said it was fair.
So best player, I think is actually Boston Rob because he won immunity, saved himself, and I can respect him for trying to mix things up in the situation he was in. I don't know if it was the right call, but trying to do something here when you're in a terrible situation, I can respect it. I don't know if it helped him or hurt him though.
So, okay, who's your worst player?
John, because he screwed up the reward challenge and the immunity challenge players so badly, and he's made himself enemy number 1 in Boston Rob's eyes.
So, my worst player, I have Rob.
Oh, okay.
Rob is my worst player because he is now the biggest target of the majority alliance.
Sure.
And everybody knows it. And we are, we're under the impression in these first couple seasons that 10 is the merge. So old Row 2 is coming back together, and Rob has only made enemies. Like, he's got a couple friends, and he's got his wits about him, but he has a lot of enemies.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Just because if you look at the way like the numbers stack, like he should be target number 1 come the merge.
Yes. So that's why he has to do something.
I agree, but just because you do something, for me this time it was like, you had a bad episode, buddy, because like, you gamble, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I think as of now he lost. He survived 3 more days, but
but he makes it to the merge, and that's what he needs now, because there's nothing else for him. So he just has to get to the merge, and he saves himself. And, we don't really get much good gameplay for anybody else. I think almost by default it's Rob. But who's your best player then?
So, I had originally written down Sean because I was kind of latched onto this idea of who's the next one to go. Because it seems like the power structure at the top hasn't changed much. So people aren't really advancing or, railroading their own game at the top. So basically I was like, somehow Sean's not the target anymore. Somehow he let Rob out voice him and outshine him and put a bigger target on his back. But I think I want to change it to Robert.
Okay.
Because he had the confessional where he's like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to be the leader here. I want to go in camouflaged. And he was not a part of the group that won immunity.
I mean, he should have been.
He should have been, but at least he had no part in that idiotic move.
He did, though. It was him.
His inaction turned into his action.
Which is fair enough to put blame on somebody, I think.
Yes, but if you're the one running the challenge, you can slow down. You can impede something. He took himself out of the equation, so maybe it's almost by inaction. He's the most competent idiot in this episode.
What you're describing sounds to me like a bad move.
I was gonna say, I feel like you started off strong with this take, but I feel like you're working against yourself in your explanation.
Fine. Let me sum it up like this because I feel like I have accidentally conflated. He has a pre-merge strategy.
Okay.
Camouflage. I am the biggest man, but I do not want to be the biggest man, air quotes here. And he's going to follow through with that strategy in this episode while everybody else does something to either paint themselves a bigger target or find themselves on the bottom or lose immunity or do a number of these other things. Robert's just another day, just another 3 days.
To his detriment, though. I think if you have the opportunity to stop your game from moving into a worse spot, you need to take it. He doesn't take it.
But you think that Rob is in a better... that sounds very... Like I'm attacking you here. But yes, Rob tries to do something and he fails. And if you fail at a big move, you are now in a worse position than you were when you started. Robert, by inaction, has maintained his position. He has no bigger of a target, and his strategy is still exactly where he wants himself. He has not found himself surprised. And I think you can make an argument for Zoe and Tammy also doing this, but I don't like the fact that Tammy didn't try to railroad the challenge a little more.
It would have been tougher to do it, but yes.
It would have been tougher, but, and that's why, this is a game of inches. We're splitting hairs here. I think all 3 of them played an all right game. If you could go back, I would do my original move where I say, don't even run the maze. Don't put anyone Amada Amo in that challenge. Don't go in the maze. But with what we were given, I feel like those 3 were the only ones who did not worsen their positions, other than Sean, who is somehow now 1 from the bottom and not 2. Sorry, 2 from the bottom and not the bottom.
I mean, I can respect Rob for trying to put a divide between John and Zoe for calling out, like, hey, she told me one thing, you told me something else. And, it doesn't really work for him, but I think that's a fair attempt. And then the fact that he's like, oh, well, I got to save myself because I'm next. And he does it. So that's why I give it to Rob.
I'm not going to take it away. I can't see it. I can't see it.
Okay.
I still think Rob was the worst because now he's the public enemy number 1.
He did a little bit of damage to his game, but I think, by not doing anything, he gambled and it didn't pay off, but I think he needed to take that move. It's by not doing anything, he's just kind of setting himself to go out unceremoniously. but by trying to do something, he's giving himself a shot to win.
Ryan, you're kind of giving him a participation trophy here.
No, it's giving yourself a shot to win. It's giving yourself an opportunity to win. It's gambling. It's high stakes gambling. If you do nothing, you're gonna get what, like 8th place and go out. Whatever. And if you make this move, you could either be next or you could win. 100% shot, you're getting 8th place, right? Or maybe 7th, whatever. Let's say that's the standard. Or you do this other move. It's a 95% shot, you're next. 5% shot, you win the game. I take that, and I can respect that.
I respect it. Best player of the episode for it, though, if you lose the gamble.
There wasn't much else. It's the gamble, and then the fact that he did save himself through sheer willpower. That was impressive to me.
I think that I'm going to go with Boston Rob. Only reason being is it's the best player of the episode, and I don't think you can look ahead at their placement after the tribes merge as a way to grade how that player did in that episode. And he was already next in line as like the biggest threat, no matter his actions. And whatever he ends up doing, I don't think that's going to end up changing much, possibly for the better.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely see your argument with Robert, and I really like his confessional. So I think he's definitely number 2, but I think it's still Boston Rob.
Well, I've been outmanned here. That's all right.
You both have solid arguments, though.
But the point is, nobody's great on this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're arguing two
Flawed.
the shiniest of turds.
Yes. Nobody played a good episode here. Let me be clear. I'm not worshiping any gameplay.
And so this brings us to, I think, the most difficult question we've had in all of our episodes of this podcast. Who is the best player of the pre-merge?
Because this is the last part.
Yeah. Next episode is the merge. This is the end of the pre-merge. Who is the best player? I have 2 options. I don't love either one. Do you want me to throw them out there?
Yeah, go for it.
And to be clear, we have to choose by the people who are currently still in it.
The final 10 of these 10 players, who has done the best job so far overall? And there's 2 people I have. I have Boston Rob. He's got a lot of high and lows, but I think he's got the best strategic chops of everybody in the game. And then I have Vesepia, because I liked how she just kind of like throws Rob and Sean under the bus. Is just trying to get in. She's been very quiet, but she's been willing to throw her allies under the bus to save herself a little bit. And that is all I have to work with here.
I like the consideration, but I don't think she's done enough.
Sure.
It's more the inaction, and I do get it because it's the season of these people,
these 10,
these 10. So sometimes inaction can be considered the best,
which is the true. Last season,
getting a 0 score is better than getting a negative score.
Yes.
And if everyone else has a negative score, 0 is the best. But I like to see some sort of action.
Yes.
So I would side with Boston Rob on that, even though there's too many flaws to count.
Yeah.
I reluctantly say Boston Rob.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say Bert.
General Robert.
General Rob, the general. My 3 were between Zoe, Tammy, and Robert.
Sure.
And the reason I go with Robert is because he's a really big dude, and nobody sees him as a threat.
No. Everybody seems to like him.
He's camouflaging himself as a tree.
I do really like his gameplay right now. The only reason why I don't think I'd be able to pick him is because I don't think I've seen enough of him, and that's just me bringing in editology of it. And he did have the one really good confession, but outside of that, I don't think there was enough other stuff.
And he voted out Gabe, which is the worst move of the season so far.
So let me put it in more of a vacuum. I am who I am. I add qualifiers. I don't think Robert can win this game.
Okay.
I don't. He would not be my winner pick at the merge, which is 2 different discussions.
Yep.
But in terms of a pre-merge, it could have gone better for him, but ultimately, no harm, no foul. I don't think that he could be in much better of a position given his stature, honestly, his gender, his sex, and the tribe he ended up on. He is solidly between 2nd and 4th place in the majority alliance on a strong tribe with a meat shield and an easy 2-3 targets going into the merge. He's basically stamped his ticket to the final 5. And at that point is when you can start to do some pretty wild stuff. So I'm not saying edit-wise he can win. I don't think so. But I think that somehow he has put himself in a position to do really well and go a long way.
He could have been in a better position if they hadn't voted out Gabe.
I'm saying that's why I said he could be better.
Yeah.
But ultimately, okay.
You know what?
Sure.
I'm going to switch.
Okay.
I'm switching to the other Rob.
General Rob. Okay.
And because the way that Derek is talking, I hate it. It makes sense.
No, I can definitely see
because I'm thinking more and more about truly what does it mean to be the best player of the pre-merge. It's in the position. It's the person who has, even though you can look at like etymology and all that stuff and like who's kind of done the most. It's who's in the best position. I think you immediately have to toss out, especially with the people who are in this season, you have to toss out the 3 remaining original Maraamu with Vecepia, Rob, and Sean. I don't think you can include any of them. And then I don't think you can include John because I think he's going to self-implode with the way that he's kind of going. You can't include Kathy because of the way that we've all talked about how her stand is so far. So I think that leaves the remaining 5, and out of those 5, I haven't gotten anything confession-wise that says a darn thing about any of them other than Robert. The one confessional, it's one thing. But I think if they can keep that core group of 5, 6, 7 people, whittle it down from there, I like Robert to win that.
Okay.
And I will go as far as say, like, I think he can win the game because of that. If you use that thinking.
Sure.
Congrats, Derek. You got me to think and and have me second guess myself.
That's why I'm here, to sow seeds of chaos.
Okay. I'm just gonna stick. I don't know. I don't know who I'm gonna go with. Boston Robert, Vecepia.
Come on.
I'll pick Vecepia, I guess, just because Rob has more flaws, I think.
Truth.
So I'm going with Vecepia.
I don't know how you can pick her.
Just because I don't like anybody.
I guess okay.
But she's playing the best of the Maraamus, I think.
And I think that's a terrible reasoning. The best of a tribe of 3 remaining. I think you cannot pick any of those people.
But here's the other thing: is Rotu have the core, the 4 have done nothing but hurt themselves. Some more than others, I think. Robert is very likable, and the other 3 they just they did 2 easy votes. I don't know. I think Maraamu's generally more hardened at gameplay going in, and Vecepia has done more to impress me trying to integrate herself. Honestly,
sure.
All 10 of these people are pretty trash.
I won't go that far. I'd say they're all middling.
They're pretty trash.
They're all mediocre.
This is not good gameplay at all. So shot in the dark.
And I understand that.
Let's move on to worst player.
Yay!
Which I think is a little easier because we have some bad ones. I have 2. I have John and Kathy. John because he's like imploding his own game, and Kathy because she had such a rocky start and continues to annoy people. I don't know what you guys think.
I think you narrowed down on the 2 people, the 2 correct people, and it's interesting because John and Kathy, it's almost the exact opposite trajectory. John started at the top, it seemed like, Kathy at the bottom, and you could almost see them as about equals at this point, or what their future outlook is. Even if John might be technically above Kathy on the totem pole of the tribe, he's looking really shaky right now, and Kathy has had some not many, some redeeming moments.
Yep.
Of self-awareness, adaptability, all those traits that make a good survivor. It seems like John doesn't have them, and Kathy, even if she's not in a great position, at least she has those traits to maybe advance herself further. So I'm gonna go with John.
And we did see some self-awareness from John in episode 1. That's one of the big reasons that Ryan and I picked him as our today winner pick. I mean,
and I guess it's a recency thing for me. That's my reasoning.
Yeah, what have you done for me lately? What have you shown me lately? I think for my worst player, it's hard because I don't think he's in the worst position going in, but Sean.
Oh, okay.
I say Sean because he was dragged along by Rob. He found himself on the outs, but because he was an outcast, Rob is the first one we've really seen take advantage of the outcast situation and bring them in to form a majority alliance. That was not Sean's doing. At best, the first half of the pre-merge, Sean is a goat.
Sure.
He is cattle being led to slaughter. After the tribe swap, Sean blows up at his new tribe, does no work, and survives only because John's paranoia of Gabe got the best of him.
Yep.
And yeah, you know what? They came through in the clutch to save them on the last immunity challenge before the merge. But Sean, like you said earlier, I think when you talked about Sarah, but he kind of survived despite himself.
Sure.
So I say Sean is the worst of the remaining in terms of gameplay.
And I put him at 3 personally, so I definitely agree. That
Bottom
he's
half.
Bottom 3.
Derek, I like your reasoning. I'm not going to switch it this time though, but I'm going to make him number 2. I think he is worse than Kathy.
Yeah, I've decided I think John is my pick for the worst of the season so far. Just because I think Kathy has a longer stretch of being bad, but John has lower lows overall.
Yeah.
It was really just the last 2 episodes, and it was real bad.
Yep.
So then I guess the question is, if we drop everything going into the merge, who is your new winner pick? Of these 10, who do you think has the best chance of winning the game? I don't have a clue. I have no idea, because this is just such a mess.
Well, and just because you're the best player of the pre-merge does not mean that you're going to win.
Absolutely not. Lex, Lex wasn't the best player of the pre-merge, but he was good, and then he just falls apart.
I think I had him as best player of the pre-merge.
Yeah, you might have.
I am going to go with Tammy. I do think that Rotu will come back and, in general, whittle down at Maraamu. I don't think they're going to let General get to Final 2. I think that they'll find a way to vote him out, but I just want to pick one of those people who have successfully chameleoned through the pre-merge, and I think they will survive the wrath of Boston Rob. I have no idea where he finishes. He might be the next one to go, and he was just this good that he gets to come back. I have no idea. But I think that they will weather the storm that is Boston Rob, and one of those 3 will come out on top, and I'm going to say Tammy.
I talked myself into Robert. General Robert, because I see a very real possibility that we go into the merge here and they pick off the remaining old Maraamu one by one, and it's either the first 3 or 3 of the first 4 maybe for those remaining ones, and then the other ones probably in order would probably be close to John, Kathy, and then crapshoot for the rest of the 5. And I think out of those 5 remaining, Robert, Tammy, Zoe, Pascal, and Nalia, that Robert could win a couple immunities, get lucky with an alliance, somehow make it out of this season as the winner.
Robert's not my number 2. You kind of talked me into putting him up that high.
Yeah.
I think he's logically the best choice. Just if in a vacuum, I think I would go with Robert. But trying to read editology as best I can for the pre-merge, I think I'd go with Boston Rob. Just because I think he's getting set up to take down John. And, I don't know, from there, what would happen. This is such a cluster of a mess of a season that I don't really have a strong feeling about any of them. But I think just trying to read the edit, I think I'd have to go with Boston Rob, but I don't love it. And but if I was going in a vacuum, I would pick General.
So, and I want to actually say something about this, because I think it was last season, it might have been season 2, where I talked about the rise of the underdog story and the use of edit to create an underdog story. Boston Rob is absolutely the underdog story, but he is not painted as the underdog at all.
He's not the nice underdog.
He's an aggressive underdog.
Yeah.
Which is, it's rare. It's rare.
He's the dog that shows his belly so that he can rip you to shreds.
But it's definitely the scratch and incline underdog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so any final thoughts so far on the season?
I'm interested to see Derek's reaction to the rest of the season, and I'm very intrigued at the decisions that we've made for best and worst and winner picks. So
absolute mess.
Yeah. And
I did not expect a lot of this.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? Here, I because I feel like I can change your minds now. There is a very real chance here that these tribes come together and Nalia and Pascal and Kathy jump ship because they're pissed off at the other 4 and feels like they made an alliance, and then join with Maraamu and make a 7 and pick off John, General, Tammy, and Zoe. I can't remember her name. That's why she's not my winner pick.
Purple Zoe.
That is very possible. And at that point, everything I just said is out the window, because this is all built on the assumption that Row 2 stays Row 2 strong and that the Love Tribe can overcome the death of Gabe. So that's my only comment.
Rest in peace, Gabe.
That's very real. And if I'm Boston Rob, Sean, or Sepia, this is the way I play.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that it's season 4, so it's hard for us to predict as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a mess.
This is a mess.
I mean, sometimes you can see in earlier seasons that they're easier to predict, but at times it's like they don't use the same logic as what we would expect them to.
This is the toughest one to predict of the first 4, easily, I think. This has also been my favorite podcast we've done some more because we've had the most discourse, which I think has been fun, and a lot of arguing, which is what I'm here for.
We don't agree on anything.
Yeah, we don't agree on anything this time
Shocker.
around, which has been a lot of fun because we were pretty much frequently on the same page with the first 3 seasons quite a bit. You know?
Marching in line.
We would part ways on a couple of different things, but we've like almost never been on the same page on any of this, which is interesting to me.
This is just a season.
This is just an absolute mess. So, yeah,
That's what we're here for, though.
Derek, weather report.
We've had rain exactly one day. It was on night 7, and it honestly didn't seem like it was all that bad. They just kind of passively said, it rained last night, and we're cold today, and then we never hear about it again. The only other thing worth mentioning, and we said it at the beginning, and we talked about it in the middle, the bugs.
The bugs are bad.
I think that with the bugs, this is my least desirable location thus far. This would be my least favorite type of season to be on, and for that reason, I'm going to say that this is the worst situation so far. Australia, bad. But in terms of like hunger, I can deal with hunger. In terms of walking to go get my water and drinking gross water, I can do that. Do you know what I hate? Bugs.
I'm with you.
So
I don't know if I'll go so as far as to say it'd be the hardest season, but it'd be the one I'd want to do the least.
That's fine. I guess I didn't mean to say hardest, but yeah, for me, this would be the worst because I can deal with all of that other uncomfortable stuff. I can get used to being hungry.
Yeah.
Bugs, you can't escape them.
The water situation in Africa was horrendous, and if I had to rank them from most to least one to do, Africa's second least.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'll have another season that'll go below those 2. I think those might be the bottom 2. Point is, Borneo's the best one.
Yeah.
By far. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I got nothing. Stay tuned for my memorable moments.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to the post-merge. We'll do Josh's memorable moments.
Only had one nomination.
Talk about who wins this thing. It'll be fun. All right, cool. Well, this has been the Castaway Consultants. We don't have a stinger yet. Bye-bye.